And I think that you mentioned it before, Scott, too. It's pretty simple installation, right? It's basically kind of think about like an IKEA piece of furniture, right? It's a lot of pictures and everything, kind of shows what you should be ending up as. So it should be pretty intuitive and ready for you to do. We're always here to be able to help you out if needed through that process.
Right.
So what are some other things that we want to highlight on here? So let's talk about the routing of the fiber, Scott. As you can see, obviously, it's only partially built out right now in here. We have our cables coming in here from the side. You do have the ability to enter from the top or the bottom, right, Scott?
Correct. These are normally set up in a twin bay. We only have the single bay. There'd be a second bay on the other side, and you'll see that in a presentation coming up. So your cables coming in and out are always on the outside of that twin bay. And then all your cross connects are done between the two bays. And that allows you to do one length cable from any position within the frame to any position within an adjacent frame or the same frame. It's all 1 5-meter cable. So you don't have to have a whole bunch of different lengths on hand to be able to patch anywhere from anywhere. And then I mentioned this already, I guess. So if you go from A over and you want to patch down to E at the bottom, you come back up over E and it patches right in, and your slack will be right in the same area all the time, never hitting the trough to take up spacing.
Making sure to always make sure it's easy for you to be on day 2 doing adds, moves, and changes and things to be able to route your cables and your patch cords within the frame to make sure it stays neat and tidy. And we put this different, key up here for you so that way it's very intuitive for installers on site.
Okay.
First, cover everything kind of in the.
Yep.
Okay, perfect.
Move back to the phone.
Yes. So now we want to kind of go through this full frame. As I mentioned, this is kind of what it could look like when it's after you're filling up. You do not have to fill it day 1. One of the really nice features about the fact frame is the ability to be able to scale as you need to. You do not need to order all your elements at once. So you could start by either populating it from either the top going down or the down going up, depending on how you want to route them to be able to manage them properly. There's a number of different type of elements. We're going to start off with showing you a patch splice element here.
And I'll show you just a little trick. There's a little notch here that holds these up. So if you just pull out, you'll feel it bind just a little bit. If you put just a tiny little bit of pressure up, it slides right out.
Hey guys, did the screen go green on everyone else?
Oh, yeah. We're gonna bear with us. Appreciate it.
There, can you see it now?
Can everybody see it?
Yes, thanks.
Perfect. Okay, so we've got our splice patch tray here, as we mentioned. Scott was talking about, you can kind of see at the end here where our fingers are. This tab, if you just kind of pull up on it, it kind of clicks into place when it's back in there to keep it from being able to be pulled out real easily. So the best way to do it is to, and I'm going to step in front of the camera, but you would stand right in the front of it, pull up and pull out. It's best to be standing in front of it to get it to line up properly. One of the things to look at here is we have some really good cable management to make sure that we manage that slack properly, both for the raw fiber coming in that we're going to be splicing here on the left side of the tray, as well as for the patch cables coming in. As Scott just opened up, both of these open here so you can properly route things in.
We also have the trays are hinged and held down with a strap. So they open up and the top tray will hold in place. So you don't, while you're working, you can deal with that. The second one comes up as well for any labeling underneath.
It's always good to make note that it's best to start from the bottom tray and then move to the top. So the splice patch chassis has a max capacity of 48 fibers or 24 duplex. So if you're only going to populate on day 1 half of this tray, make sure that you're starting with the bottom so that way you're not having to do your splicing on the bottom tray after having done it on the top. It's just a better way to work. Your numbers 1 through 24 on the bottom tray, and then 25 through 48 are on the top.
We'd also like to mention that this is a right-hand patch because I talked about twin bays, a left and right hand. When you're ordering these, if it says right-hand patch, it means the patch cords are going to exit to the right-hand side. The splice will be on the left. So if you're in the left bay, you'd want a left-hand patch to patch between the two bays.
And we'll continue to talk about that throughout. It can get a little confusing, but as you get used to it, it becomes more intuitive. You can't see it really on the camera shot here, but when you do order these, you order them as either a left or right hand patch, as Scott mentioned. There is going to be a letter that, and on this tray, since it is a right hand patch, where my finger is pointing to is actually an R that's in the tray. So you will know that this is meant to go on the left of the two frames if you have them side by side, so that you're putting your right hand patches on the left side and your left hand patches would be a frame out of picture here normally. So that's kind of the splice patch. We're going to dive deeper into that in a little while. I'll show you a full unboxing and how to route cables properly into it.
Show this one too, right?
Let's go to the NG4 one. I believe that is the, Scott, you want to talk about the NG4 module that's in here?
So NG4 is another ODF lineup, and we've used the same components in it. So we made these trays that'll accept an MPO module that's 24 LC to either 1 or 2 MPOs on the back. And we've also made a cable module that goes in, routes in, pops in place, and presents the LCs on the front. This makes it very easy for turning up service. You route your cable in, you snap it in place, you're ready to plug in without the splice in between. We're reusing the NG4 components. And you can use this on left or right side. This one is ordered a left or right side to get the MPOs directed the right way to plug them in.
Mm-hmm. So it gives you some of that flexibility if you want to start using pre-terminated MPO cables within your facilities. You can bring in a pre-terminated MPO, plug it in here, and then you have your patch cords on the right-hand side. And just to reiterate, with the cabled module, the short term for that is a CMOD, is what we call it. You can actually order that with a predetermined length. So you could order a 100-meter CMOD, and all you have to do is then bring that CMOD into here, terminate the cable at the other end. This part is pre-terminated in the factory, and then you're just doing your patching here.
And I should mention, we have this on this is just a 24 fiber, but we have a 144 that breaks up to 12 CMODs, 288, a 72, 96. So you can break it out to however many CMODs, snap them all into place.
So that's kind of one of the other options for you. Let's move on to the splice tray. So we're going to move down. One of the ways that you can tell a splice tray in the small image, you might be able to tell, and I think overhead view, you can see there's a blue tab on the front of these. This is a tray that if you don't want to be doing any patching at all, you can do purely splicing within it. And as you can see, the splice wallets fall into place in here, and you can just do a straight splice through. Just another option to consider. You can route cables in both sides, and then here's your labeling scheme. Finally, the adapter packs. Adapter packs in here, you can just order this way. So you just have LC pre-terminated ends on both of them. So it's purely through. And Scott, we have MPO options for adapter packs as well as SC connectors, correct? As well as UPP.
MPO,
yeah.
And MPO to MPO if you wanted to pass through an MPO connection.
So that's kind of a good general overview of the different options that you have. Obviously, you can see we have all the different ones in here, so you can mix and match as you choose to see fit. One thing to note as well, and actually before we go on to this, I do want to mention, I think we forgot to say, if you have any questions throughout this, we're going to have a Q&A at the very end. So feel free to drop some things in the chat. We've got some people monitoring that so we can pay attention at the end of that, but then we have the ability to be able to bring people off mute as needed at the end as well. What we are going to go into final on the elements is to talk about the different sizes that you can order the elements in. You can order them in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6, correct?
Yeah, and normally you size the element for the cable you have coming in. If you're bringing in a 48 fiber cable, you do a single element. If you're bringing in a 96, you'd want a dual element with 2. And that allows you, and we'll show you this in a little bit, to put your cable and assemble it on the table right in front. And then you just lift it up, slide it into place, and dress your cable coming out. You don't have to work at the top of the rack. This is, like we said, the 1.8, the 2.2 would be up here, and you don't have to dress it out up there. You can dress it right here for that cable size and slide it right in.
Yeah, we'll pull one out to show you what it looks like. You don't have to order your cable according to the size of the element. It's all about how you want to build out your facility. So as Scott mentioned, typically you'd see if you have a 96 count fiber cable coming in, you would normally order a 2-element piece. But if you only want to half populate that, that's perfectly fine as well. It's kind of up to you on how you want to do your cabling within your facilities.
Before we pull it out, one thing, and it's tough to see on here, but there's a little blue tab on the 2 sides of this one, and then there's none for the next 3. So that's a grouping of 4 elements. This one's got a blue tab and none, so there's another group of 4. Down here is a group, way down, 2. Down here, and that allows you to pick which one we want to take.
Let's take out this one here, Scott.
Okay. So you pull it out a little bit. Are we doing top down? Yep.
Yeah.
You pull out a little bit and there's a little trigger here, and that's actually that blue tab you see. So you pull it and pull it out. Pull it out. It pulls right out. Now you're able to set it on the table, dress it out, do whatever you want. And you're all ready to go. I will show you, get a little closer up and you can see the blue tab in there and none down on the 3 below. So now when you want to put it back in, dress it out, you just slide it back into place, push it in, and it's locked in. There's nothing else to do. That's as easy as it is installing it. And now we're going to switch to the presentation, I believe.
Yeah, so the camera's going to go black for a minute while we switch over to a PowerPoint to kind of run through with everybody. And then we're going to come back on camera and show you that unboxing of the splice tray chassis. So give us a minute while we pull this up.
Did it? All right.
And is everybody seeing a PowerPoint now? We just see a couple thumbs up in the
Okay.
chat. Perfect.
So some of the things when you're designing a FACT ODF solution is the footprint. You know, it's 600 millimeter wide, I think, or no, that's the old one. 1050 millimeter wide. It's and got the 2 sides, the height, the 1.8 and the 2.2 and the padlocks. So if you want to do these back to back or up against a wall, you have a very good solution with high density. This is in the catalog section that Eric sent out.
Yeah.
So you can go through that and what he sent. It's showing a rendering basically of how a fully installed one would look. It's got the cross connect numbers, the dimensions, everything on it, but it's all in that link that you sent out.
And this image, as you can see right here, you can see cables coming in from both the top and bottom to kind of represent the flexibility there. You do not have to set it up that way. You can bring in everything from the top or everything from the bottom. All your patching, again, happening on the right. So just a good visual. The table that you see to the right is in that pre-work that should have been sent out to you, that is in our full ordering guide for the FACT frame. And we're always happy to help you out with determining proper part numbers and things.
One of the things, and we didn't point this out because hard to put the cameras down there, but the bottom trough, if you do come up from a raised floor, there's 2 different, there's that plate B that covers the opening. So if you're coming up from the floor, you wouldn't have that, you'd have A around it, and it narrows up your trough so you don't get as many fibers in here. We'll be sending this presentation out, and I'm not going to go through all the numbers, but depending on the size of your patch cord, will determine how many fibers you can have within that tray at the bottom, that trough.
Yeah, and another thing to note as we move through these slides, you'll start to see this. The bottom trough really is mainly meant for after you have now populated maybe 2 frames side by side. Most of your patching is going to be happening within those spooled areas that we were highlighting that have the different color coding and letters on there. The bottom trough is really primarily used when you get to a point to where you're ready to start adding maybe a 3rd or a 4th FACT frame in your lineup to be able to patch between multiple frames rather than just between the left and the right.
Yep, good point.
And we'll show you what some of that looks like here in just a minute with these slides.
All right, so don't get hung up on the east and west. I was just using it to designate, 2 different areas, maybe the service provider and the customer, or coming from one room to another, or one area to another.
Yeah, a lot of times you see service providers, maybe entering your connection where you bring your service provider in on that left side of the frame. And then maybe on the right side is where you're going to be patching between to maybe distribute the service to either an IDF on the floor, to a customer area, if you're trying to interconnect different areas of the facility together. That's kind of what that is meant to do. So you remember you're routing cables in on the left side, typically patching within the frame between the left and the right frames, and then your exit to then distribute out to somewhere else in the facility will then exit on that right side of the frame on that opposite side.
Yep, and so you can see that none of your cables are really going to the bottom unless they're going out to another area. Your incoming cables on the far left of the left frame and outgoing cables far right of the right frame, and all your patchings between the twin base set. That cable manager to the right of the far right bay, we'll see that in the next one. That's for extending the line up to the next one. That's the slack cable manager.
So we mentioned what it might look like. Let's say you've fully populated both your left and right frame. Now you can start to expand to adding another frame either in your lineup, or you could do this back to back. But for sake of ease of displaying this on a PowerPoint, we put them all in a line from left to right here, as you can see. There's an extra piece added there, Scott, in between the two, set the two.
Yep, that's that slack cable manager I was talking about. So when you're running from one bay to the one base set to the next base set, any excess cable, there's one length of patch cord we recommend to do that. And any excess from patching will go up into that and be stored.
And that length of the patch cord recommended within a left and a right is 5 meters, correct, Scott?
Within a single base set,
Yes.
or going behind. Going left to right into the other one, I'm trying to remember how many.
You add a meter per frame to the right,
Somewhere around
correct?
there, yep.
So you would have 5 meters if you only have a left frame, you would have a 5 meter patch cord. If you had a left and a right frame together, you'd still have a 5 meter patch cord. You would start to add that meter in this scenario here, where you see we have a third and a fourth frame to the right of those two.
Okay. Here, as you can see, now we've added some of that trough going to the bottom. We're getting some buildup in the trough area at the bottom. That's again where we want to just keep most of it between the base sets and go down there for very few patches if we can. All right, so here you can see this is not a very good way to set it up. That's why you're getting the little angry eyes. If you're looking from east, you can run 900 cables to the north and 900 cables to the south. And then again, going from the west to the north with 900 and west to the south with 900, you get 3,600 cables down in that little trough area going between. So it's not ideal setup for routing your patch cords. You're going to fill up that trough pretty fast. Better would be to split it up. Now you can patch anywhere within our 4 directions within the twin base set, and then very, rarely use the bottom trough to go to the next section, and where you're also
one of an install. This is just something to kind of keep in mind for those day 2, day 3, and future planning for the facilities, to make sure that we are just kind of staying in communication. We're here to be able to help you out and kind of talk through things. Every facility is different, so it's just something to kind of keep in mind that we wanted to at least highlight for everybody.
And we're not going to keep going down these. We're just going to quickly highlight these. But here you're seeing, the more you split it up, the less you're going to have to go to that bottom trough.
And the more cable, and then the less extra lengths of patch cords you're going to need as well, because you're going to be staying within the frame. So you're going to be able to stay within that 5 meter section.
Yep.
And then just one other example, if you want to advance the slide once more, Scott. We're just trying to demonstrate here really your flexibility and your scalability to be able to, if you have enough space on a wall, or if you end up putting these back to back in a data center or some sort of facility, you'd be able to have the ability to really scale this. That kind of is a good highlight of that. We're happy to come back to some of these if we need to explain them a little bit further in the presentation. Right now, we'd like to transition back to do a unboxing for you and show you kind of more in detail of what the splice chassis will look like. All right, so as you can see here, this is a box, our box where our chassis comes into. We're gonna try to do our best to orientate it for you. When you open up the lid, you're gonna have your instructions of how to assemble the chassis, along with different labeling stickers and things here. And here's your smooth, these are the smooth clips,
Yep.
aren't they?
Splice.
Yeah. So these are your splice sleeve protectors that you'll be using it within the chassis. With these right here are the ways to be able to mount the chassis. What we're going to be opening up here is a one element chassis. It ends up coming with both of these teeth, right, Scott? Because it's
Yeah.
nice to have this. Could you explain that?
Yeah.
Why it has
So,
both?
well, I don't want to show the one behind us right now because we're focusing in on this, but this would mount a single chassis. That's no problem. But it's better if you're going to be mounting multiple to use bigger one of these, at least two. It's just more stable
Yeah.
in the frame.
If-
We send it both because if you have a single slot left in your frame with that doesn't have a mount there,
Mhm.
you can use this. But if you have a double, it's better to use the bigger one.
Yeah.
And have it ready.
So with this single element that we're going to be pulling out, and we'll show you what it looks like going into the frame and where we place these, you know, I'm going to call them teeth for now for simplicity. You could put two single element chassis with these. So here's our element. We're going to pull it out here. So as you can see, this is a single element. What it has pre-installed is this is the clip for routing your patch cables on the side. It's easily clips on and off. So you just slide it on the side here. And then as you can see, I'm going to grab the side there.
There, it's easier for one person to do it.
There we go. So now we've slid this tray out, and as you can see, this is another right-hand patching tray, just like we were showing you earlier in the demonstration. So this is a splice chassis. So typically you also order a CTU kit. So CTU kit is to be able to properly protect your fiber after you strip it down to make sure that it's protected coming into the splice tray. This is how it will come in the bag, and we've assembled one here to be able to show you what kind of the end product looks like. Now, keep in mind, we're doing this as a demonstration purpose. What the best practice would be to do is after you've routed your fiber into the frame, you would have a little station, just like we kind of have a table here set up, but you would have this set up directly in front of the fact frame. So that way you could put the chassis down here and you could bring your fiber onto here. For demonstration purposes, we just have a short piece of fiber. So Scott, do you want to clip that onto the side?
First, the main pieces of this, 1, 2, 3, 4, these things just slide together, these slide together. Take this one apart. It just clips in, clips together, no problem. You zip tie your cable, you route the fibers up, you feed them through. You can see, hopefully, there you can see the holes on the end. So you feed them through, you set each set of those in and use however many you want. It's a good idea to load it up with all of them. You can always take them back out to add more tubes, but then you don't lose the little pieces.
Yeah, important note there.
So this just goes on the side, just like that, clips in. And now you'd route your cables.
So let's go ahead and open this up. We're going to pretend like we're only going to try to show in that kit with the CTU as well. Where my finger is another one of those little clip for these furcation tubes, and they just clip in right here. Do we have another clip there somewhere, Scott, that we could show that? While Scott looks for that, I'm going to start to feed these in, and we'll show you where that clips in on the top tray. So if we're going to be splitting our cables up, let's say we're doing 24 fibers, and we feed in groups of 12. So we'll feed this in. Make sure that you use the inside loop for the bottom one, and we're going to bring the furcation, this tube in here, and we're going to clip it in here to secure it, and then we're going to route the next one in.
When you clip it in, you imagine you have fiber routed all the way through there. So you'd have this and you'd pull this fiber out, do your splice, and then lay it back down. This actually, we could pull that out if you wanted.
This is your protective cover here. It's just a basic plastic. Do the splices, and then your smooth chips of your fiber splice protectors would be clipped into here.
Yeah, this one's set up for rollable ribbon. So you'd bring rollable ribbon in, and we've used stranded and we've pre-ribbonized it So really, you're just doing 2 splices in this one, 12 and 12. But in a stranded or
Mhm.
something like that, you'd have more spots here.
This is a brand new product actually, so it's great that we get to show you this. Most of what we are seeing still is using just standard stranded fiber with the smooth protectors in there.
Yep.
So we'll pretend like we've spliced everything, we've placed in place, we'll put our cover back on there. And then we're gonna fold the tray down. So now day 2, if we're gonna finish populating this, we've now added these 2 extra tubes, pretend like we've done that, and then we've got our extra clip here. So here's what that clip looks like. And we're just going to clip it in to the tray.
Of course, I think it goes the other way around.
There we go. You can hear the click. And then we'll go ahead and feed the tubes into here.
And actually, you can put the tubes in and snap it in with the fiber in them and have it all. That way you're not worried about pinching any fibers or anything.
Yeah, that's all about making sure that you manage that. So we'll close the tray there, and then we'll make sure that we put the Velcro strap over to secure these trays down. So we've now essentially spliced everything that we need to, and we're doing this on a workstation. Let's go ahead and bring this over.
Oops.
Gonna bring it over here. So like I mentioned, oh yeah, let's go ahead and put the teeth in first.
Bring it over and show them.
Yeah. So here's those clips and everything. Let me get a close up by chance here. So Scott was talking about earlier, using the different, here, these clips use the back one. So we're gonna slide these in, no tools needed. We're gonna secure these in place. Okay, so now we've got 2. So we can put essentially either a 2 element that's been ordered as a 2 element onto this, or we can put 2 single elements on.
Yep, and this, if you ordered a 3 or 4 element, it would come with taller one of those.
Yeah.
Or 6, it would come with those 2.
So now Scott's gonna place our sample. So we're gonna simulate. So if we had, and can we get the wider
table?
view here? Yeah, so if you have your table there on install day, you would do all of what we just did over there right in front of the frame here. So you would have you would pull your fiber down and you feed it in, so that way you're all done. So now, once we've spliced everything, all we have to do is take it off the table. And we're gonna just line up the sides of the tube. Top or bottom? Top one. And all you do is push it in. And it clips into place and it's secure. Now we're fully secured in here. You can see, since that was a dual teeth, you could essentially slide another one in there. So we did that just for, demonstration purposes. Normally you'd want to make sure that you're butting them up together instead of separating.
Yep, and now you dress your cable. There's spots here to zip tie it. We have different types of ways of securing it. You can get a bracket, like an L bracket, or a cable clamp, or whatever you want up here to route the cables and manage them.
So we've spliced everything into this tray. Now it's time to do a patch.
This one over.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and open up the one that we've just done. So now I've got here a couple different patch boards. Remember, 5 meters in length when you're within the frame.
I'm gonna pull out 2 of the dust caps.
Perfect.
So they come with the dust caps installed.
So we've taken out the dust caps. Now we have installed this in the B section. You can see how it lines up with the color coding here on the back of the frame. That means that we're going to be using the B spool. So we'll take our patch cord. We're going to route it up over the B spool within here. Make sure that it's dressed nice and neat in here. Make sure we're working with plenty of black for right now. We're going to open up our covers. I find it easiest to just go ahead and put which camera are we on right now?
Right here. Okay.
So this is one of our Uniboot jumpers. Nice thing about this is that you can change polarity just by pulling out on it if you haven't seen it before. I can flip the polarity around. we're gonna take this in and we're gonna plug it in. Okay. We're clicked in place. Now I'm gonna take the fiber and I'm gonna route it through the proper routing. As you can see on the tray here, you've got 4 different channels. You typically, every 6 is how you route this through. So we're up here in the top 3. So we're gonna take that inside route, just kind of feed the fiber through. And remember, we talked about this earlier. On the lower tray, we're going to use this inside track on the outside. You can see there's 2 here. So I fed the fiber in through here and out. Then we're going to feed the fiber back in through that clip I showed you in the very beginning. There's just a blue tab here you pull down on to allow the fiber to be fed through it. There you go. Let's take one more so we can show a couple of these in here. Am I okay for camera angle? Populate here. Okay, as I mentioned before, you want to route these properly through the channels in case they're all full, so you don't fill one too much. Since we've now gone out of this 6 into rows into 7 and 8, we're going to route this down into the next channel. But then it'll continue with the same route here and back again. Here to make sure we manage it. Okay. We've now routed 2 of them in. We'll pretend like we've done all of them, or however many we need to do for those patches. We'll clip back into place our protectors. We'll fold this trick down. That covers up. Put our Velcro strap back into place. And then just that first time, it's always good to just kind of hold on to your slack and close the tray to feed the cable. Now we're going to feed everything back up, make sure it's over the proper spools and in place within the cable management area. And then you would have it in a left and a right configuration. Then the rest of those cables that are now going out would then be routed up over the corresponding spool on the other side. Keep in mind that you don't have to necessarily install the element in the right side frame in the same section. So let's say that we're more populated on our left frame than we are on our right. You might have this down in the B, but you might be populating the next element where you're patching in the A. So just note that when you move into that next section, that you just pay attention to the element where you're going to be landing that patch to make sure that we are landing in the proper area to manage that cable management properly. I'm going to open this up again. Do you mind putting the overhead view just so you can see it? And we're going to open this back up for safety patching. And as you can see, the fiber is fully protected in these areas every time I have to open and close this drawer. Slide it back in, and there you go. And that is a basic installation of a splice patch chassis. Scott, is there anything else that we should be covering? I know we have kind of a list of things here. We appreciate you guys dedicating so much time to the training today. We actually went a little bit fast, so I guess it's time that we should maybe open up for Q&A. There's a few other folks in the room with us here, so they may prompt us to cover some things that we may have, accidentally skimmed over, being a live event and all.
We'll go to the, anybody enter into the chat first? Should we do those?
Yeah.
Before opening it up for questions?
You might hear another voice in the background. Jen's been monitoring our chat. Jen, is there any questions that we should be looking at first that are in the chat?
So let's start with the first one, and actually Ahmed has covered some of these, but there was a question about how many fiber elements are supported, or how many fibers are supported by each element. For example, if you wanted to do a 144 fiber configuration.
Mm-hmm.
So just so everybody could hear,
Yeah.
I'll repeat the question. So we touched on this a little bit, but the question is, how many elements would it take to do different fiber configurations, basically?
Mm-hmm.
So if you have 48 LCs in each element, you brought in a 144 cable, you'd need 3 elements to terminate that 144.
If you're gonna fully
If
populate.
you're gonna fully populate.
Mhm.
Now, you don't have to fully populate the first day. If you only wanna do half of it, you could do, 96 or 48 or whatever you want, and then bring in a second cable as needed.
Each one of these trays, and let's go back over the splice tray here. Right. Each one of these trays for the splice is 48 fibers in total, remember. So each element, when you're doing a patch splice, just multiply that for your cable to be able to get to the amount that you would normally do.
24 on top, 24 on bottom. So if you wanted to populate only half of it, you'd flip it up and populate. Better practice is the bottom half,
Mhm.
the first 24, and then come back and do the top half later.
So for example, a 48 fiber, or let's go with the 96 count fiber.
Yeah.
You normally order a 2 element, right, for that?
Yep.
But you could also order that in a 4 element if you only want to do 24 fibers in each tray.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
So in this one, it'll accept 48 fibers. You can run a 24 fiber. If you want to have populate a 2 element piece, that can hold up to 96. You could just bring a 48 fiber into that and only populate the lower tray on each one of those elements so that you only have 24 fibers in each one of the elements.
Yep. The only warning with doing that and populating it later is, remember, this is a short rack. If you have the 2.2 meters, it's already populated on half, you have patch cords ran out, you're not gonna be able to remove that, bring it down to a table to work on it, to bring in that second cable. So you're gonna be working up, at least on the top ones, up high, getting to those to run that cable in there.
Mhm. So it might just be a matter of having a step stool for those.
Oh, yeah,
first ones,
yep,
yeah.
it's easily done. I
Yeah.
just wanted to throw that out there.
Appreciate that. Yeah, you can do it either on the table in front or you can do it while it's in place, however you need to for the
Yeah.
two application.
Jen?
Yeah, so we got another one, just a clarification point, the cable termination kit. Can you clarify or speak to the fact that that's for field term fiber routed to the fact frame as opposed to pre-term?
So the CTU kit, I think, is the question that we were going over. So yes, so this CTU kit that we were showing you that clips to the side over here, I'm gonna just remove this for sake of ease.
You gotta pull it up, yeah.
And it's only for inches, but this piece right here
Yes,
that is in this bag right here is a CTU kit, and it is used for field terminated splicing of the fiber.
great.
Oh, and actually, one thing we didn't mention on that, which is, I'm glad somebody brought it back up. The one we have here is for a single CTU or a single element. They make ones that'll feed 2 elements, 3 elements. So if you have a 3 element that's with a 144 cable coming in, that's not, for splicing, not pre-terminated, you'd buy the one for 3 and it goes in the middle element. And then it'll allow you to run the fibers up to the top element, bottom element. So we have different CTUs for different amount of elements for what you're doing. Now, the other part of, I think that question was a pre-terminated cable, you wouldn't have to use this.
Yes.
If you have a pre-terminated cable, you bring in,
Let's take the NG4 module that's over here for example. That would be a pre-terminated MPO, correct?
yep. Is that okay?
Yeah, can we get a
One
close-
down.
One down.
So this one's pre-terminated with the CMOD on the end. So then you do not use that CTU, use the cable, like he showed you on the one over there, with patch cords, the cable, VCG on the side that comes with it. And you just route your cables in. But they wouldn't have to be a CMOD. You could run a cable with just LCs on the end and
Yeah.
plug them into adapters only
Yeah.
as well.
So you could, so this one on the top here, these are 2 different inserts. So like we said, this is a pre-terminated cable module that you're ordering the length. This is a module that is an MPO to LC. So if you were to order 100-meter pre-terminated, this could be 20, so a 24 fiber pre-terminated MPO that breaks out into 2 12 MPOs. You just bring your pre-terminated MPOs just the same without that CTU kit into here, plug them in, and then use your patch cords. And then the same goes for.
We have one right here.
Yeah.
This one. Perfect. So now you,
This is a poor example, but please excuse.
somebody did this at
full
a
pause
trade
here,
show and
yeah.
we didn't fix it.
So, but as you can see, yeah, just ignore the green boots here. But as you can see, it's pre-terminated LC coming in on both sides. So you could order, pre-terminated LC bundles to plug in and then just use an adapter pack to continue that LC connection for your patches.
Yep, and this actually runs out to a multi-fiber cable coming in here. So these aren't just patch cords, these are tails, broke out to the LC.
Correct, yeah. And we offer those in different various, quantities and counts and things.
Okay, so.
You got an echo somewhere.
How's that? Is that better?
I think we're good
Better.
now. Yeah.
Thank you. Can you demonstrate front to back patching if you have frames back to back?
Now, I
Yes.
realize we don't have them set up this way
Sure.
right now in the room, but if you guys can provide some of the demonstration.
Sorry, John, just a quick question from the folks in the room here,
Yeah.
about CTUs, before we leave. Is
Okay.
there a different CTU for loose tube fiber versus, a tight, buffer fiber? So 250 versus 900 micron, is there a different CTU the team would use?
Great question.
That's a good question.
And I don't know the answer off the top of my head.
We can research that
I'll
and get
have to
back
let
to
you
you.
know of
We'll,
it.
we'll confirm in the brochure. I believe that it's the same one most likely, but we'll confirm that. and
Yeah,
we'll
I
make sure
think
to
it
follow up
is.
on that. Yeah.
Could have looked at the instructions and told you, but.
Sure. Yeah, good question. Sorry, we don't have the answer off the top of our head, but we'll be happy to follow up with that answer.
And then the folks here in the room had another question for, bringing in cables to the fact frame. Where would they secure the cables coming in on the left side, coming into the fact?
Okay, let's get the close up and let's show this one maybe, Scott, right?
Okay.
Because it's a little bit easier to see.
So right here, you can see coming in, there's zip tied, there's actually the little T's in there to zip tie to, right in there. So you'd secure them coming in, those repeat all the way down the frame. The other option is, there's some other holes up here, and we have like L brackets and different types of ways of securing it with cable clamps and all sorts of different ones that can be clipped in here and secure your cable to it. So you'd clip in, clip on, and it would hold it steady. So there's a bunch of different ways, but one of the main ones is zip tying them in there. Ahmed, is that okay?
That answer?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you.
Let's talk about if you're front to back.
Okay,
Let's go ahead and can we pan over to maybe the empty one? Is it gonna be easier to see a different?
well, yes. It's tough to see. So can you see this bottom half here?
We can
so-
get a close up. We can get a close up of this too.
You saw in the presentation, the second one, the mirror image. So there was a trough angle here coming down. Well, at the bottom, there's actually a cutout here, rounded edge here and here. And that'd be mirror imaged across and these would be on the other side. So this is your opening down here to go through to the back frame and feed the back. So you run over here, come down, route through to the back. And then you'd use the same cable managers on the back side to route up and over and into the bay behind.
So you saw this, I was moving this around while Scott was talking. The patch cables, if we're side by side, left and right, you would normally have it into this portion, right, Scott? No.
It's up,
Okay.
it's right here.
Well, if you were side by side is what I'm demonstrating still.
Oh, side by side, yes.
Yeah,
You've got-
so side by side, normally you're down here. If you're front to back, you're not gonna go through this section here. You're gonna come into this cutout here into the backside, and you're gonna be doing your patching on the backside here. And obviously, we don't have a frame, but just picture if there's another one on the backside here that we're now patching into. Do we need any further clarification on that? I know it's hard to try to visualize and we don't have the back to back. Perfect.
We could show the presentation and show the picture too, if we need more.
Sure. What else can we help you all with?
Got another question?
No other questions in the chat. So
Okay.
at this point, if you do want to unmute yourself and ask a question, we're happy to have questions. Sometimes it's hard to type and it's easier to just say
Vocalize.
what you're looking for.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
but stay on mute if you're not asking a question so we don't get people talking over each other,
Yeah.
please. You really don't want me to sing?
Just a quick question from the folks in the room here. If you're populating a fact frame, not fully populated day one, is there a recommendation to start from the bottom and populate it from the bottom up or from the up down?
We discussed this earlier.
Yeah, we did. It's, you can do either one, but Scott and I were kind of talking about this. It's kind of a matter of how you want to manage the cables for day two. They're entering it properly, correct? Because if you're doing the field termination using a CTU kit, there, you want to angle them either up or down depending on the entry. And Scott, you were kind of explaining some good stuff
The
yesterday.
history I've went through before is if you're coming from the top, you generally start from the bottom and work your way up. But there are reasons to do it the other way as well.
Mhm.
So it's really how you're comfortable doing it and the way you're setting up your network. But traditionally, it has been, if entering the top, you start at the bottom and work your way up. So you're laying the cables on top of each other as you move up, instead of having it here and then you come down and go back, you know, having to cross all those cables that are already in here
Yeah.
as you bring the next cable in.
And I don't know if we can get a close up because try to visualize, you know, if you have multiple of these CTU arms off of here, everything's entering from the top. If you start to have multiple elements going down, the more of these that are there, like Scott was mentioning, it might be easier for you to start from the bottom and go back up because then you're going into it and it's more of a natural flow. But if you prefer to start from the top from the bottom, it is doable. You're not going to endanger any
You're
of
not
the
gonna
fiber or
hurt
anything
anything,
like
you're
that.
just-
Yeah.
You're crossing over.
Mhm. Anything else? Ahmed, did that help? I believe that was Ahmed that asked that.
Yeah, no, these guys are happy with that.
Perfect.
Okay. Anybody else want to ask a question? We went through this kind of fast. We weren't exactly sure the timing
Yeah.
on how long each section would take. I know we planned for 2 hours.
Uh-huh.
So we're here if there's things to talk about.
We're here to talk. We dedicated the time. We appreciate you all dedicating the time. If that kind of answers everything, we're happy to give that time back to you as well today.
So just gonna see if I can find that answer.
Sure, that's
real
great.
quick.
We are planning, this session has been recorded. So we are planning on being able to make that available if you'd like to be able to go back through and look at some of the things that we did here. And we're always available to be able to be get in touch with if we have any other questions and things as well. I know that the various CommScope reps, you can get in touch with them. Both Scott and I are reachable that way.
Yeah, it doesn't say here, but
Okay.
I think you're right. I think it'll do both. I don't think you have to do separate ones.
Because the reality is you're terminating the cable and then you're feeding just
Yeah.
through the protective sleeves.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
We are going to, as of right now, answer that you do not need a different one, depending on those strand, loose tube or tight buffer.
yeah,
If we have to correct that, we will. But as of right now, just figure it's the same.
The folks here just have another question about securing the frame to the floor, if we can just touch on that.
Great.
we do not have one apart. So if you want to, oh, yeah.
Let's
Can you-
go take a look at
All
the,
right, we're gonna move back to the front frame on the floor.
should we show the bottom of it? This is the bottom
Yeah,
side
yeah.
right here.
So if you point kind of this way. I'll move this out. Am I live? All right, so I'm gonna move this box out. And you have to imagine the back frame's in there, the plate's on, stuff like that. But there's holes right down here and there's a few holes at the bottom. There's also some feet down here for leveling on both sides, so you just secure it through there.
And Scott, do you secure I assume you probably secure the back to it first before you tilt it down to get
Correct.
the measurements
You
correct?
assemble pretty much the whole thing, that keeps it square.
Yeah.
And then you, including this bottom plate, you secure it all down, and then you put the trough in and stuff like that after.
Sure. So you would put, let's bring the camera, you put this back piece of the honeycombs on it, right, Scott?
Correct.
So you would, while it's, after you get it out of the box and you lay it out on the floor, you would want to probably lay it face down, I assume, get the back secured to it and then tilt it up and put it into place.
Correct.
So that then you're just bolting it down those feet at the bottom, so you're not having to measure it out or anything. You can put it in place where you need to.
Yep.
And then you finish building out all the rest of this piece and the sides, correct?
Yep, and it's, you can see the top piece up there across, that gets put on first. the very bottom where it says CommScope down there, that's on as well. And then you secure it to the floor. And then you have the rest of the troughs after it's stood up.
And again, the instructions are pretty intuitive in there. They're basically like images that you can look through step by step to be able to see how it goes together.
Do we want to show them putting the doors back on?
Sure, why not?
We'd
Yeah.
have to move the camera above,
Oh,
but
yeah.
that's fine.
Would you mind if I
Let's
move
move
it? Okay.
While you guys are putting on the doors, can you answer, how would you anchor the frame to a raised floor?
The raised floor.
With screws.
Scott, do you know the answer on that one?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not a cameraman.
We'll wait to do the doors. Let's answer the question regarding.
So
the
again, the
anchoring.
question is, how would you anchor the frame to a raised floor?
There's a kit for that,
Oh,
I believe. You know, on the cement floor, you have the bolts coming up or the holes
Yeah,
that you drill and secure, but on the raised floor, it'll go through and was it there like ox barring or something below? And
okay.
it's got the feet on there,
Uh-huh.
you know, to secure it. I believe there's a kit for it
Okay.
to match up.
If you do need to secure to the raised floor, maybe get in touch with us directly so we can know who it is that needs to know that, and we can try to get you either the
There's
kit.
instructions on it. I
Okay,
believe,
all
too.
right, sounds good. Can they also install something else in place to have a bolt coming up that's secure on their own?
I believe so.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
all right, so you
Yep, you
can,
just have to have the spacing right,
okay,
you know, like the template or something to lay down
yeah,
to know where to put them
sure,
or mark them, set it in place and mark them and then do it.
yeah, okay.
okay, does that answer the question on the?
They're not,
On the raised floor?
they're not overly heavy. Two of us lifted that up and moved it. You know, when it's partially together, two guys can move this around.
Yeah, move it back, you can move it into place, mark your holes, move it out of place, so you have your holes marked.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay,
Does that answer the raised floor question?
so there is a kit.
I believe so. I'll have to grab the catalog.
All right,
We're gonna send out the pack catalog along with the link to the presentation or whatever we're
Yeah.
doing after the follow-up.
Mhm.
And that'll have that stuff in there.
okay, and we'll follow up with the part number.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, I think the fact brochure was in that pre-work, but we'll send it as a follow-up,
that's the
just
one I
to,
was
yeah,
thinking
just to reiterate it, just so you have it more convenient.
Thank you.
Of course. Let's put the doors back on. Maybe note that the two different sizes of the doors
Oh, yeah.
too.
So the narrower doors on the left-hand side, the wider door over the patch cords on the right-hand side. That gives you a little more room to work with the patch cords.
Sure.
You don't need as much room on this side.
So best practice is to do one at a time and get it secured in.
There I'm on, so I put the bottom one in. Then as I see it's in there, I turn the handle and flip it up to secure it. And it raises it up and it's now secure up there. This one, you just kind of put in, it'll slide right into place. These are beveled. So it slides right in and then as you shut this, it raises up and it's secure.
And once
Both on
more,
top and bottom.
and then if you do have the locking kit installed, then you just lock it and now it's secure. You do not need the locking kit. It's
Correct.
purely by your choice.
This one so we can see.
Yeah, let me get back over here. So like we mentioned, it's nice to be able to remove the doors if you're doing a lot of work in it. If you're doing a few patches, it's probably just gonna be a matter of opening the door and just letting it swing open while you finish your patches and closing it again.
Yeah, oh, that's a good point. I don't know if you can point at the bottom with the camera or not.
You can
But-
see the,
With the door on, actually, that one might be better.
show it from the front, and then we'll come over to the back side afterwards.
So when you bring your patch cord down, you can see the doors don't come all the way down. So as he was saying, if you're doing just a few, you can route them down and over and then shut the door. And here you can walk along, lay the cable, you know, all the way over to where you need to go. And then open up that door and terminate it or patch it.
And
So-
as you see with the door on this one too, you know, somebody asked, this says the side piece on it, you know, that's how you get back into the, if you were to do a back-to-back mounted, you can see our gap to where we can now access to get to the back, behind of the cabinet.
Yeah, and a twin bay setup, this side piece would not be there.
Correct.
We only have it there because it's a single frame in the single box here.
But if you were to do a back-to-back setup, you put the wall, would you put the side on it there, Scott, if you were to do a back-to-back? To make sure that there was
You
no,
typically still have a twin frame
okay,
and then back to back.
okay,
If you had just a single frame back to back,
Mhm.
then yes, I'd probably put it on there.
okay, good.
That is very common.
Yes. It's all a matter of how how your space is laid
Yeah.
out. But typically, if you're gonna do the back to back, start with a left and a right side to side,
Correct.
then go back to back with another left to the right on the back side of it, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Can you show an example of a fan out fixation plate, like the FACT, FRACCFOPL?
I do not have one here. But we have similar ones that would secure back there, as I was talking on that one,
Mhm.
and come out and be able to attach the cables to it. They're in that brochure, but there's not really good pictures of them in that brochure.
Okay.
I could try find a picture of it, or I can find a picture of it
Mhm.
and give to you to send out at the same time.
Okay.
Okay,
I don't have one here.
got it. We'll follow up with a picture.
Correct.
Okay.
All right. Anybody else have any other further questions? In a minute. Well, if that's about it, we
Yeah.
really appreciate y'all joining us today. I'm happy to give you about almost an hour back into your schedules. Again, my name is Eric Barton. This is
Scott
Scott.
Anderson.
Yeah, and we really appreciate you joining us for this demonstration of the FACT and training. Please get in touch if you need to go into more details for more specific applications, and we can help to kind of walk through any designs that you might have. Thank you very much.
Thank you.